Okay. Okay, so evening everybody. Thank you all for coming. So for anybody who hasn't attended one of these meetings before, my name is Chloe. I've worked for the council for the past 2.5 years as a biodiversity officer, but I've just started my new role as the Coastal and Marine Environment Coordinator, which is exciting. So yeah, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, and if you have any questions, you can either pop them in the chat for us to go through at the end, or I'll stop recording at the end of my spiel, and then we can have a chat anyway. So as I've said, I just started my new role as the Coastal and Marine Environment Coordinator, which is thanks to our new project that I'm heading up called Coastal Connections. So this project is being funded by the Welsh Government's Coastal Capacities Fund and Local Places for Nature Challenge Fund. So yeah, I just wanted to use this meeting. It's a bit different to our usual NPT, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to sort of introduce you guys to the project, and mostly give a bit of background about sort of why we're running it, and then a little bit of an outline of what we're planning to do. So yeah, just thought I'd start off by giving a bit of an overview of our relationship to the coastline in Wales, just to outline the importance of this environment and the impact that it has on our daily lives. So Wales is a coastal nation, which is quite an obvious statement, but over 60% of its people live at or near the coast. Our coasts and seas are a source of a really wide range of benefits. So this includes resources such as healthy food and aggregates for construction. And then marine environments are also a source of renewable, sustainable energy from wind, wave and tides, as well as a vital means of transporting goods around the country and the world as well. Tourism is also a really key aspect of the Welsh economy, and our coastline and coastal cultural heritage is a significant source of income for our coastal communities. So the coast also provides opportunities for activity and relaxation, both to local communities and visitors, which leads to both physical and mental health benefits. Our coasts and seas are also vital in the fight against climate and the nature emergencies, providing habitat for countless species, helping to reduce coastal erosion, store carbon, and provide natural flood defences. So I could probably go on, but just from that short list, it's clear how important our coastal and marine environment is in Wales, and how it impacts us on a daily basis, whether we realise it or not. So moving on to NPT a bit more specifically, I thought it might be helpful to give a bit of a picture of what the coastline of NPT looks like and its current uses. So as you're all probably aware, the coast and marine area of Neath Port Talbot is dominated by heavy industry. So this includes the Tata Steelworks and then also the legacy of past industry as well. So the steelworks covers much of the coastal strip between Margam and Aberavon. And then next to the steelworks is Port Talbot Docks. So there's a deep water harbour here, which is a really key asset for import of materials for industry, and it's likely to become even more important with it recently becoming a free port. And then the Baglan Energy Park to the rear of the dunes at Baglan is a site of the previous BP chemical works. It now supports solar farm developments, has a defunct power station, and then there's a lot of open areas of land here that have been earmarked for future development as well. And then from the River Neath to the River Avon, Aberavon Beach is the key feature here. So the beach is a really valuable local recreational and tourism asset. So recreational activities, particularly in the summer months, are quite varied along the stretch of the beach, but the area is particularly popular for things like kite surfing, swimming and dog walking. And then finally, the marina and dock facilities are also present on the River Neath. And then right at the tip of the coastal strip in NPT is the Swansea University Bay campus. So that paints a picture of sort of what the coastline looks in NPT. So yeah, whilst it's clear that NPT's coastline has been heavily developed, that doesn't mean that there aren't any important habitats or species along our coast. So in fact, together, the coastal and marine ecosystems provide habitats for around 43% of NPT's priority species. So they're really, really valuable habitats. So yeah, coastal and marine is quite a broad category. They're actually two separate categories, but for the purposes of this, I've lumped them into one. So yeah, it includes subtidal, intertidal, sand and mud, estuaries, sand dune systems, and salt marshes. So whilst many of these habitats have been reduced to the remnants of their original extents thanks to heavy development, they are still highly biodiverse and important habitats. So just to give you a bit more detail, if we start at the shoreline, the intertidal and subtidal habitats in NPT are primarily sand and mud with no natural rocky features. We do have some rocky man-made features in the form of sea defence, but there's no natural rocky features. There aren't any conservation designations for the marine subtidal habitat in NPT, but we do know that it is Swansea Bay is an important site for harbour porpoise. And then if we come away from the shoreline, Crumlin Burrows, Baglin Dunes and Morva Dunes are sort of what's left of a once large, well-connected system of dunes, dune slacks and coastal fen. So the remaining area of these habitats have sort of various levels of designation for their importance. And these sites are really important for overwintering small wading birds, as well as rare plants and invertebrates, including plants like the marsh helleborine and insects such as the strandline beetle. And then if we move up slightly into our estuaries, there's a really important area of salt marsh habitat that occurs along the River Neath estuary that supports diverse plant communities containing sea heath, sea lavender and golden samphire. Yeah, so like I said, we do still have some really important habitats in NPT despite the development. So yeah, I've mentioned a couple of these already, but just to highlight some of the important and more charismatic species that are coastal and marine habitats in NPT support. So small blue butterflies can be found all along the coastal belt of NPT, particularly where you find kidney vetch, which is the food plant of its caterpillar. And then, as I've said, during the winter months, we get internationally important numbers of great crested grebes and nationally important numbers of sanderlings that gather at Aberavon and Crumlin Burrows, and they gather here to take advantage of the rich food source of invertebrates in the intertidal sand and mud. Swansea Bay, as I've said, is also known to be an important site for harbour porpoises, and we get annual mother and calf sightings here in the bay and frequent sightings of nearshore foraging being reported along the NPT coastline regularly. Ooh, sorry, missed one. And then finally, sea stock, which is a nationally rare plant, can be found in the mobile dune systems of Crumlin, Baglin and Morva Dunes as well. So unfortunately, there are a number of threats facing our coastal and marine environments in NPT. So outside pressures such as the housing crisis and the drive for economic development, unfortunately does leave some of our coastal habitats vulnerable to development. There are big changes coming to NPT's coast in the next sort of 5 to 10 years and beyond, with the Celtic Freeport development and the planned redevelopment of Aberavon seafront. These could all have impacts on our coastal biodiversity. The lack of management has also led to a decline in the condition of our dunes and dune slack systems, with scrub becoming established in dune slacks, leading to a loss of them, and a number of invasive non-native species becoming established in Crumlin burrows, including Japanese rose and sea buckthorn. Another big issue is the downward trend in the movements of overwintering sandling and ringed plover as well. So until recently, the intertidal areas on Crumlin burrows have provided feeding and roosting sites for nationally important numbers of wintering sandling and ringed plover. But unfortunately, the increasing use of these beaches for dog walking is causing an issue and is now influencing the movements and behaviour of these birds. And they appear to be deserting some of their favoured roosting sites, which is quite a big issue. Some other more sort of general threats facing our marine environment include marine litter and plastic pollution, as well as water pollution from sewage outfalls and agricultural runoff. And then lastly, the threats posed by climate change, such as more extreme weather events, ocean acidification and rising sea levels are all dangers to the resilience of our coastal ecosystems. So yeah, based on the evidence that we have for our coastal and marine habitats and the threats that they are facing, unfortunately, but perhaps unsurprisingly, the state of coastal and marine habitats in NPT has been assessed as being poor. But yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do about it. And yeah, so this is partly where our Coastal Connections project comes in, as we hope that we can make a slight difference. So the project aims. The project is still very much at the beginning stages at the moment. I've only been in post for a few weeks, as I said. So yeah, it's still taking shape. But just to give you an overview of what we're planning to deliver as part of the project. So yeah, a big aim of the project is to raise awareness of the coastal environment in NPT. So including sort of its importance for us and for nature, but as well as that, as what actions we can take to help protect it. So yeah, we'll be doing this through a social media campaign, as well as installing interpretation along the coastal strip at Aberavon, and a big one is carrying out public engagement events as well. So in terms of our public engagement, we particularly want to focus on engaging with groups and members of the community who sort of might not already have an interest in the coastal or the marine environment. So, for example, by engaging with local area coordinators, schools, and community groups. Another aspect of the project is focused on evidence building. So we've got a bit of an evidence gap particularly for our marine habitats in Neath Port Talbot. So part of my role in this project is going to be sort of to try and build this knowledge through carrying out surveys and engaging with local universities. So we will also be supporting businesses along the seafront at Aberavon through the project by offering help and advice on how they can improve their premises for biodiversity. And then another arm of the project is habitat restoration. So we have some capital to do some sand dune restoration works on the dunes in front of Baglan Energy Park. So this will both improve the habitat quality of the dunes and also stabilise them to prevent dune erosion, which is a problem there. So it's sort of dual purpose. And then lastly, we have funding to install some green roof structures at Aberavon, as well as improve the interpretation along the seafront and plant a wildflower wave along part of the seafront to increase the connectivity along the seafront for pollinators. Yeah, so there is more I could say, but I'd probably be here for a while if I went into everything. But just to add that we will be engaging with the public throughout our entire project to make sure that your guys' opinions are heard. So yeah, keep an eye on our socials and emails and things to hear more about that. So yeah, how you can get involved. As I've mentioned, we are in the beginning stages of the project at the moment. So I can't be too specific about what we're going to be offering through the project, but yeah, rest assured there will be lots of ways that you can get involved. So yeah, we're going to be running public events, as I said, over the course of the project. These are going to range from sort of family-friendly activities to training days. So there'll be sort of roughly one per month, but we'll probably jam some more into the summer months for obvious reasons. There'll also be lots of volunteering opportunities, hopefully, with the project. So whether that's helping out with a sea watch or a sand dune survey, or maybe volunteering for a beach clean or helping to plant our wildflower wave at Aberavon. Another way you could get involved with the project would be through citizen science. to sort of help build our knowledge of the marine environment and NPT. So as I've said, we've got a bit of a knowledge gap here. So citizen science is extremely valuable to help us close that gap. Yeah, so coastal or marine sightings are really valuable, as most of our biological records are tend to be biased towards being land-based. So yeah, a good place to start with this might be taking part in something like the Shark Trust's Great Egg Case Hunt or something, or just, you know, if you see something interesting, or just anything at all. To be honest, all records are valuable. When you're at the beach, you could even just send me an email and let me know what you've seen so we can record it. And then lastly, I've not really touched on it as it is a whole other presentation, but individual action can be a huge way that you guys can get involved and help the coastal and marine environment in NPT. So NRW did an interesting survey a couple of years ago, which found that 40% of people in Wales thought that their actions had no impact on the coastal and marine environment, which I found that quite a shocking statistic. I realise I'm probably preaching to the choir when I say that that's obviously not the case, and that our everyday choices, like ranging from, you know, where we buy our seafood, how carefully we dispose of our litter, where our energy comes from, or even how we talk to our friends and family and use our voices to raise awareness. These are all decisions that will impact our seas. Yeah, so okay, not too short, but yeah, that's it from me now. So thank you for listening. I hope you found it interesting. If you are interested in the project and would like to get involved, we will be advertising all of our events and volunteering opportunities on social media and the LNP website. So keep an eye out on those. But yeah, feel free to get in touch with me via email. I've popped my email in the slide, as well as the general biodiversity team email, in case that's useful for anything else as well. Yeah, so that's it from me. I'll stop recording now. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask away.